There's a strange kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You're always busy. Your days are full. Your calendar looks important. But somehow, nothing is really moving. And the scary part is this. You can't even explain why you feel stuck, because technically, you're doing everything right. If this feels a little too familiar, relax. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You might just be trapped in a very specific psychological pattern. Here's what makes this so confusing. When you look at people who seem stuck, they're usually doing nothing. But you're doing everything. You're researching, learning, planning, connecting, starting. The problem isn't absence of effort, it's distribution of it. Your energy is like a phone with 15 apps running in the background, technically functioning, but mysteriously dying by noon. Some people aren't busy because they're driven. They're busy because being busy feels safer than choosing. Think about it. When you're juggling 10 things at once, you never fully fail at any of them. You're always in progress, always figuring it out, always about to lock in. It sounds productive, but psychologically, it's protection. Busyness can be a very elegant hiding place. Here's the part most people don't realize. Staying busy gives you something incredibly comforting, plausible potential. As long as you're working on many things, every version of your future stays alive. The entrepreneur version, the creative version, the academic version, the version that finally figures it all out next year. None of them have to die yet. And here's the thing about humans. We collect possible identities the way some people collect books they'll never read. It feels good to own them, to know they're there, to imagine someday you'll finally become them. Your mind becomes a museum of future selves, all carefully preserved, none of them real yet. And museums are beautiful places to visit, but you can't actually live in one. That's why this pattern hurts so quietly. From the outside, you look functional. From the inside, you feel strangely behind. You keep thinking, I should be further than this by now. And here's where it gets really uncomfortable. You start doing the math. If I just focused on that thing 3 years ago, if I'd committed back when I first had the idea, if I hadn't kept switching, the calculations always hurt. Because deep down, you know. You weren't held back by circumstances. You weren't blocked by resources. You were blocked by you, by your inability to let one version win. You work hard, but your effort feels diluted, spread thin, like butter scraped across too much bread. You're exhausted, not because you're lazy, but because nothing is getting your full nervous system. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The real problem isn't lack of discipline, it's fear of commitment, because commitment does something terrifying. It closes doors. When you truly choose one path, you don't just move forward, you silently let go of every other life you could have lived. And that feels like loss. But there's actually a second fear under that one. The first fear is, what if I choose wrong? The second fear, the deeper one, is, what if I choose right and I'm still not enough? See, when you're busy with everything, you can always say, I'd be amazing at that if I just focused. That sentence protects something fragile. Once you focus, the sentence becomes, I focused and this is what I am. That's the version that keeps people scattered for decades. So instead, many people choose motion over direction. Movement feels productive. Direction feels risky. There's also a subtle ego trap here. Being busy feels important. When someone asks how you're doing and you say, honestly, I've just been really busy, that sentence carries status. It sounds ambitious. It sounds like potential. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Our culture rewards looking busy. The person juggling 5 projects gets more social credit than the person quietly building one thing. Because juggling is visible. Building is boring. For months, sometimes years, it just looks like nothing. So we've learned to perform busyness, not because it works, but because it looks like it should work. And humans are funny like that. We'd rather look successful than quietly become it. Saying, I chose one thing and I'm all in on it, sounds quieter until results show up. And results take time. So the mind does a clever thing. It convinces you that juggling is a phase, that once things calm down, you'll focus. But somehow, things never calm down, because the busyness isn't accidental, it's serving a purpose. It's keeping you from having to find out who you really are when excuses disappear. And here's the really tricky part. The longer you wait, the higher the stakes feel. At 23, exploring feels normal. At 28, it feels questionable. At 33, it starts to feel like evidence. So you stay busy to prove you're still trying, because trying is always forgivable. Choosing and failing is not. Let's slow this down for a moment. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your own ambitions, that's not a flaw. It means you can imagine many futures. The mistake is trying to live all of them at once. Human beings don't scale like that. Progress doesn't multiply, it concentrates. Here's a reframe that changes everything. The problem isn't that you're doing too much, it's that you're doing too much at the same level. Everything feels equally urgent, equally important, equally can't let this go. So nothing gets leverage. Think of it like this. You know that feeling when you're trying to have a deep conversation with someone, but your phone keeps buzzing? You're technically present, but your attention is hemorrhaging. That's what your life feels like when everything matters equally. You're present, but you're not there. And you can feel it. That's the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Real growth usually happens in sequence, not simultaneity. One thing grows first, then it supports the others. But that requires patience and trust. This is where a lot of people panic, because choosing one thing feels like betting your identity on it. What if it fails? What if you picked wrong? What if you regret it? So the mind says, let's just keep everything alive for now. But keeping everything alive keeps everything small. Here's something oddly reassuring. Most people who feel stuck like this aren't afraid of hard work. They're afraid of clarity. Clarity removes ambiguity. Ambiguity protects the ego. As long as you're busy, the story is, I'd be amazing at that if I just focused. Once you focus, the story becomes real. That's vulnerable. But here's what happens when people finally choose. They expect to feel trapped. They expect regret, panic, FOMO, and sometimes for a week or two, they do. But then something unexpected happens. Relief. Not because the path is easy, not because doubt disappears, but because the exhausting performance finally ends. You stop auditioning for your own life. You stop maintaining the illusion that you're keeping all options open. Because deep down, you always knew. The options were never really open. They were just preserved, like museum pieces behind glass. Beautiful to look at, impossible to touch. Now, this isn't about doing less for the sake of minimalism. It's about understanding seasons. There are times in life where exploration makes sense, and there are times where commitment is required. Staying in exploration mode forever feels safe until years pass and nothing solid exists to stand on. If this video feels like it's quietly describing you, take a breath. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not broken, you're not behind. You're just trying to protect too many futures at once. And at some point, one future has to become real. Not because it's perfect, but because it's chosen. The strange thing is, once that happens, relief usually follows. Not because life becomes easy, but your energy finally stops leaking in all directions. Focus isn't about pressure, it's about peace. And clarity doesn't trap you, it frees you. If you've made it this far, here's the quiet truth most people never hear. You don't need to be busier. You don't need better hacks. You don't need to optimize harder. You need one direction that your nervous system can finally trust. Everything else can wait. And when it's time, you'll come back to it with leverage instead of exhaustion.